Allison Maslan is a serial entrepreneur who's built 10 companies from the ground up. She's a business and life mentor, a mom, a trapeze artist, and she is loving life. Allie and You is inspiration and insights for your business, your life, and your dreams.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Allie and You show. We are talking about business success today. I am Allison Maslan and my friends call me Allie. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a business and life mentor. Now let me ask you, when you're going after success in your dreams, what do you do if you can't see a clear path ahead? Well, let me tell you, if you tune in every week at this time on wazilomedia.com to Allie and You, I'm going to share with you some winning strategies, clear directions, and the answers you've been looking for. I'm also going to highlight some successful and interesting entrepreneurs, artists, and talents that have refused to back down even when the road got tough. And the result is that you're going to see some inspiring stories that will move you, and you'll also learn some lessons from, the road that they've paved before. And I want you to also communicate with us through Facebook and Twitter. You can get to us on my fan page, Allison Maslan. We want to hear from you, your questions, your comments. And we're going to answer those questions right on the show. So I want to get right to our guest today because I'm so excited. I have Mr. Joe Harper, who is the president and CEO of the Mar Thoroughbred Club and has been for the past 30 plus years. And he has weathered the storm through some ups and downs and hung in there through it all. So we are going to learn from all the trials and tribulations he's been through and to bring that track to record highs. He's also the grandson of the late Hollywood director, famed director Cecil B. DeMille. So he's had quite an interesting past and present, so we want to hear all about it. So I'm very proud to introduce my friend Joe Harper. Thank you so much for being here.
Are you kidding? Thanks for having me on your show, Allie. It's a terrific show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, it's just, you have, it's like, where do we start? You've had such an incredible life. And I want to talk about the racetrack and entrepreneurs watching the show. And so they're going to be like, how has he done this for 30 years and hung in there, right? But I also want to talk to you about your interesting childhood. So why don't we start there a little bit? And as I said in the intro, that your grandfather was Cecil B. DeMille. Who is that guy?
He showed up back in the teens. He was in New York, started out in plays, writing plays and directing them in the legitimate theater, they call it. This is, just after the turn of the century, really.
Yeah.
And then he, heard about Mr. Edison inventing this little camera, and they could actually photograph plays with the camera, and I guess they didn't have to pay the actors only once. So obviously
that's changed.
That's changed.
Yes.
And the original guys that were there, part of his group, Jesse Lasky and Sam Goldwyn, and some of the great names in Hollywood in the beginning. So he formed this company, the Lasky Players, and they found out soon with these new cameras that you needed a lot of light. And not like us here in the studio with all this synthetic light. In those days, they didn't make bulbs that big, or probably no bulbs. And so they had to go where the light was, and that's outside. In New York, in the middle of winter, there's not a lot of light. Right. So grandfather got on the train and headed west to where the sun shines. Took his camera and his little family, my mother and her mother, and they went west. And they got off in Flagstaff because that's where they were going to go with the sun, but it was snowing in Flagstaff, so back on the train they got, and they got off when it stopped for good, and that was in Los Angeles. And he rented a barn and put his camera in there and shot most of the stuff outside. And the first film ever made in Hollywood, the first feature-length film was made in Hollywood, he made. And I believe it was around 1912 or so. It was called The Squaw Man. Mm-hmm. And in those days, you could make more than one picture in a year. His later films, such as The Ten Commandments and the greatest show on earth. It took you 3 years to make one of those, but
Right.
in the old days you could make 3 or 4 a year. So,
Right.
but it kicked off Hollywood, and it was an industry was born, and
Yeah,
millionaires were made, and
yeah.
everybody took
Just
off.
because he had a passion, right? And he went for it.
He had a passion, and he had a great creative passion, which is, I think, even stronger than making money. I think it's like you just want to, you got this inside, you want to put it out. Here's this new medium. I mean, you think about it. There was no movies. I mean, this was all new. So it would be like some guy going around and said, "Look, I found a paintbrush for the first time." You know,
Right.
And
yeah.
so he had all this discovery to make on what he could do with a camera. When does sound come along? Can he move the camera? Can he pan shots, wide shots, establishing shots? That was no such thing in those days.
Wow.
It was on a play. It was on a stage.
Now
So-
he worked with Charlie Chaplin as well, didn't he?
well, he didn't work with Charlie Chaplin. They were at that same kind of time. In fact, interesting story. When Grandfather became successful, the first decade, in the early 20s, he bought a house in Hollywood, a great big old house up on a hill. And there was one next door, not too far away, that Charlie Chaplin lived in. Charlie wanted to sell it, and so Grandfather bought it and joined the two houses and made it one house.
and that's where you grew up.
That's where I grew up, yeah. Great big old, 30, 40 rooms.
Yeah,
lots of
you were
attics and
slumming
basements.
it.
It was tough. Yeah. Of course, I didn't know I was, what I was in those days. It was just home,
Yeah. So tell us about that a little bit, because here you are, this little kid. You've got Hollywood actors and movies running around, and I know your parents were also involved in the industry.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Well, it's hard looking back on it. It was terrific. When it was happening, I just thought this is the way people, lived. I mean, it was always around the set, the studio. Everything, conversation was always about whatever picture was being filmed at the time. You'd come home and Charlton Heston could be sitting in the living room, or Hopalong Cassidy, or Anthony Quinn. Actually, Anthony Quinn was my uncle, and he ended up marrying my mother's sister. So
wow.
there was a lot of in the family. There was a lot of theatrical presence, and so it was just great growing up, because a lot of the things that my family did, all of us did it. So when we went to the studio, I'd go to the studio, and as a little kid, I remember sitting on a stool next to Grandfather when he was filming the Samson and Delilah back in the late 40s with Victor Mature and Hedy Lamarr, and there's a great scene in it where Samson pushes the temple down, and
Right.
I just happened to be at the studio that day when the temple came over. It was all done in miniatures, but the miniatures, instead of 100 feet, they were 20 feet, so
Right.
it still made a big bang when it fell down. I remember that.
And that's pretty cool to a young kid. For sure.
It's terrific,
Yeah.
and you'd go to lunch in the commissary, and you'd be sitting next to some guy dressed as King Arthur, or a spaceman, or it was always like that. It was a fascinating world. It was this kind of like fake world out there, but it was real. I mean, the people that you knew. Well, he's not a pharaoh. That's Uncle Ewell. I mean, it was Ewell Brenner, my pal.
Right.
And so it was. It wasn't Moses. It was Chuck Heston. And
Yeah, so you got to talk to God too, because I heard he was the voice
He
of
was
God.
the voice of God. Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of fun. I mean, growing up meant working in the pictures too, because after a while, you had to go earn some money, And so my first picture that I did with Grandfather was The Greatest Show on Earth, and actually won an Oscar for Best Picture of the Year of 1952.
And I'm a trapeze artist.
I know.
So
I know you
that's
are.
like one of my favorite movies.
It was, I actually got a little time on a trapeze, which was terrifying. So don't ask me to come out there with you, because it was scary. But it was fun, because we got to travel with the circus. And he shot it. We shot the real circus and cut it into the theatrical part of the picture. So it was just fun, on the train, going from town to town with lions and tigers and the clowns. And the clowns are always crazy. And
so that scene where the catcher is catching and they do the kiss,
yeah.
was that real?
That was real. Actually, it was interesting, because Betty Hutton played the flyer in the picture, the trapeze artist, and she was a really hard worker, gung-ho lady, a neat lady, and she actually learned how to be a trapeze. She must have, did a lot of the stuff that you're doing, and she was, they were up there, and they would try to get her a double, but she said, no, I want to do this, I can do it, and Cornell Weil was the catcher for her, and so it was interesting. It was fun. It was great because my scene in the picture was when the train wreck comes along, and there's this huge train wreck. 2 circus trains run into each other, and if you remember it all, but it's the wild animals get loose and people are throwing around and the fires and everything, and that's all. It was before digital stuff came out, so it was an amazing spectacle to see and we shot it late 50, early 51. So it was amazing to see that kind of thing on the screen for the first time, really, with that much action.
Right. Now you said you were chased by.
My scene was I had to come out from underneath the wreck. I was a circus performer, and I had a little toy soldier, and I think at the time I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I come crawling out from underneath this Pullman car that's on fire, and I drop my toy, and I have to bend to pick it up, and when I pick it up, this panther who's loose makes a run at me and tries to get me, and I scream and I pick up my toy and I run down the set, and the panther's chasing me, and just as it gets to me, the trainers come and tackle it down, and I run into this lady's arms, supposed to be my mother, and it's a great big long scene with lots of action on it. So, and I remember, I was dressed in a bathrobe because it was late at night and supposed to be on the train, and the assistant director, a great guy, and Chico Day, said, now Jody, they called me Jody those days, he said, now I want you to look scared.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So I'm down there waiting for my cue. Well, so was the panther. And this trainer had a hold of him, like with both hands holding this thing and going, now look scared. All I could see was this breath coming at me and these eyes, and I came out of there like a shot. I'll tell you.
You didn't have to act.
No.
That was a real thing.
It was a real thing. And it was funny because it was so scary. I saw the rushes the next day, what they'd shot the previous day, and I saw this whole scene, and it was scary. It looked like the kid and me was going to get eaten by this panther or mauled, and because it came very close. The panther, I knew my mark, but the panther, he kept moving his mark because he knew where the guy was going to catch him, so he'd move over and get a little better shot at me.
Well, if something happened, you couldn't really sue your grandfather.
No, well, I think that was it. Because they said the night before the whole thing, they said, well, we need a kid that is going to be in harm's way, and we'll use Jody because he won't, they won't sue us.
Yeah.
It was so scary. The funny thing was, of course, it was so scary looking at that they cut the whole thing out of the picture.
Oh, really?
Because this was 1952 release, and it was supposed to be kind of like a Disney deal, and they couldn't have child endangerment in pictures, and so somewhere on the floor of a cutting room was my best stuff.
Would love to see that. Now, you also rode in the chariot with Charlton Heston when he had his first training chariot lesson.
Charlton Heston's first chariot lesson was it was way before Ben-Hur. It was actually for the picture of the Ten Commandments. There's a scene in the opening scene where he's Moses, the Egyptian prince, before he becomes Moses, the Hebrew slave. And he needed to drive the chariot, and so we were all in Egypt on location with the chariots, and he said, I need a lesson, and the guy that took him, he was a major in the Egyptian cavalry, he was in charge of all the chariots and stuff, and he gave him a lesson, and he said, hey, why don't you hop in here? So I got in the chariot with Heston and Abbas and took off. I was terrified, of course, because Heston didn't know what he was doing at that time, and Abbas was kind of, I think, half trying to scare me. But it was a wild ride out in the Sahara Desert with Charlton Heston and this guy. But,
oh my gosh!
But Heston picked it up, and a few years later, he was in Ben-Hur. So.
Yeah, and he did an amazing job in that too. That was incredible. Wow. So and then you said at a young age too. I mean, here you had all this excitement too, but then you were sent off to boarding school at a young age, and I mean, we know that a lot of kids growing up in Hollywood, let's be honest, some of them get kind of messed up. How is it that you turned out so great?
I got lucky there, I think. Well, it's true. I was sent away at boarding school when they would sometimes go on location or I wasn't working in the picture. And so I went in the third grade, was sent off to Black Fox Military School in Hollywood, and every kid in there was somebody's kid. Whether it was, Jimmy Stewart's kids were there, and Kirk Douglas's kids were there. I think Mike Douglas wrote in my yearbook in the 3rd grade. So it was always there, and it was tough because a lot of these kids, they had 3 or 4 different families. I remember going home for Christmas vacation or getting ready to go home, and one of the kids hadn't met his new mother yet.
Oh my goodness.
And one of the kids was looking forward to, because she was some movie star that he hadn't met before, and so it's always funny. Those conversations were just so bizarre. That
Right.
Uncle Daddy this, and I can't decide which house to go to,
Yeah.
or which family to see. But I was always good at it, because our family was very busy, but they were a great family. And although they were gone a lot, being raised in a house as big as we had in those days, I mean, there were probably at least 10 to 12 people that worked there full time, between the maids and the cooks and the secretaries and the gardeners and the laundresses, and so lunchtime, it was terrific. It was like the United Nations, because they were all from different countries, and so the cook was Hungarian, the maid was Finnish, the cleaning lady was German, and the chauffeur was an American.
Right.
And
So
so
they were like your surrogate family.
they really were. I mean, they loved me, I loved them, and in the weekends, if I couldn't go home from boarding school because nobody was there, one of them would come and pick me up and take me to their house for the weekend.
Right.
And
you
so
got
was
lots
very
of
happy.
love. You got
Lots of love, yeah, and I think that's what does it really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so moving on from that period of time, how did you get from this, Hollywood childhood to end up being the president of the Mar Thoroughbred Club?
Well, I think when they finally threw me out of my last college, I decided that I better go back in the motion picture business where I felt comfortable, and I ended up at MGM Studios in the mailroom, where everybody goes to the mailroom when you start. Again, everybody's kid was somebody in the mailroom, So
you must have had a lot of mail coming in.
yeah. So it was fun there, and I actually ended up a cinema photographer. Ended up working for a fellow named Joe Burnham, who did a lot of documentaries, and a lot of them around the racetrack. And so my mother had always bred horses, and I was very comfortable around the racetrack. It was either the studio or the track, and so I ended up at the racetrack doing shooting commercials for them, and promotional films, and some coverage, daily coverage of the races from Sandy to Hollywood Park and Del Mar. And after a few years, somebody said, well, maybe you ought to go to work in management, and so I ended up a vice president of Santa Anita, and then when the guy from Del Mar was retiring, I couldn't wait to to come down here to Del Mar, which was 1977. I started down here as a cameraman in '67, and in '77 I came in the management position. So, and it's been great. I mean, Del Mar is it's the best racetrack in the country. It is, it's a Del Mar.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you beat that? And
you've
got a short,
so beautiful
boutique meet, and we've had to reinvent ourselves. It's been a very interesting time. I mean, I love it. I've never not wanted to go to work. Every morning I get up, I can't wait to get in the office. We got a terrific crew. They all feel pretty much the same way I do, and for 7 weeks you make the magic happen. And the racing industry has seen a lot of hard times. I mean, here's it used to be in the 50s, 40s, 50s, you'd with the Seabiscuit picture, those of you who've seen it, it was a big thing. I mean, they'd get 80,000 people at Santa Anita.
Yeah, well, Seabiscuit raced also at Del Mar.
Seabiscuit did race in the 30s. He came out with a match race against a horse called Ligarodi, which was owned by Bing Crosby. Bing was the guy that kind of started Del Mar. For those of you who don't know Bing Crosby, he was a very powerful guy, a singer and actor in the 30s and 40s in Hollywood, and he liked racing, and he made a deal with the state of California that owns the track, owns the grounds there, to build this racetrack and get things going. And he was, he'd bring all these Hollywood cronies down. So, Bob Hope and all the actors, the big time actors of those days, the huge stars, would come to the track because Bing said, hey, come on down.
And it was like a Hollywood hangout.
It was a definite Hollywood hangout. Yeah, it really was. And that's, there's nothing better to market your place with than a bunch of stars.
Yeah.
So the people came, and when he brought Seabiscuit down, made a deal with the owner of Seabiscuit to come down the following year, that even got more play. So
right.
And it's worked very well for Bing for a number of years. And then I think he got a little tired of it, and the fan base kind of dwindled over the years. And when I got there in the 70s, mid 70s, it was I think we were number 22 in the country.
Now, how many racetracks are there in the country?
Well, I know there's probably 50 or 60 of them around now.
Okay.
Probably more in those days. But now it's we had to reinvent ourselves, and more than once. When I got here, we had to reinvent ourselves, just kind of on an operational basis to make it easier, and then build a place into something that looked decent. The fact is that in 1977, the place had been falling apart. It's owned by the state of California. The people that had the lease before we got it didn't put any money into it. So when we got there, our company is a management company. We decided we're not going to make any money. We're not going to, now if I say that, we're not going to make a profit for ourselves. We're going to make a profit, but we're going to make a profit for the track.
Right.
So
and that's a really important point, actually. Excuse me for cutting you off there, but a lot of times entrepreneurs have it's hard for them to grasp that they're not taking a salary for a while, that the money actually needs to go back into the business to grow the business.
Well, it's like that old story about, watering the well to get the well to work. You cup of water there, do you drink it or do you pour it down the well to get the well to bring more water?
Right.
So it's like, and that's what we were faced with. We knew what we had to do, and we felt that if we put all the money back into the facility, it would be a win-win for us, because it would be better. More horsemen would like the better horses would come here. With the better horses came the higher betting handle. And with that came the more profits, so we could put more money back in it, and it worked really well. In the early days of those leases, back in it was in the late '60s that we started this thing to keep the money back. We were, I think our first rent check was about $500,000.
Wow.
Our rent check last December was 13.1
That's
million.
hefty.
Yeah.
500,000.
500,000 to now 13 million a year, and the same with fewer racing dates.
But you've been able to tell us about, what do you feel that your secret has been to, the last several years, the economy's been down, other tracks are hurting, and Del Mar has got record highs. What's your secret?
Well, I think first you have to identify who you are or what you are, and we're relying on discretionary income, and we're in the entertainment business. A lot of tracks think they're in the racetrack business only, and I don't. I mean, we're in the entertainment business, and you can't expand your attendance and your market just being the same old. So here you go. You start reinventing your image and how you want to bring people in. And
you've got to do that
in
a business. You've got to rebrand. You've got to refresh that.
And it's a very clearly marked success, because you take some of the other tracks in the state. At the same time, for the last 10 years, we reinvented ourselves again. We started off in the 60s. We did it again in the 70s. And when 10 years ago, when we started, okay, we're doing well, but we need to get that younger audience. We need to get the 30s and 20-year-olds. So, first thing you do then is you go out and hire a marketing guy that's that age.
Yeah.
Don't look at, for the old guy. It ain't going to work. And
then you did the concerts.
So we did concerts. We rebranded ourselves, basically. We were always cool with Bing Crosby and the old Hollywood. Well, we went from where the turf meets the surf to being as cool as ever.
Right.
And we brought the old into the new. Our commercials didn't show horses anymore. They showed pretty girls on a runway going through the fashions from the 20s to the modern day. We brought in concerts on Friday night, interesting concerts, bigger concerts on Saturday maybe 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 a season, depending on what we could find out there. We introduced interesting sponsorships, but geared toward younger people.
So you got creative, really.
We got very creative.
To shift to bring in this new audience and really.
And when it was all said and done, here we are with the same product that, say, a Hollywood Park or Santa Anita has, exactly the same horses, in a much smaller market, and we're doing 3 times the business, and more than 3 times when you look at profit, because they're probably breaking even, and here we are at $13 million net profit.
Well, I think growing up in the entertainment business too, it helped you kind of think that way too, maybe where some others didn't have that.
I think you can't come in and rely on. You don't ask the people that are already there what they want. You ask the people that aren't there. Why they're not here.
You're not here, exactly. And that's about speaking to your customer and figuring out what they want. And give it to them.
It's interesting, because what I learned was that your customer is that you want isn't your customer now. And that was the tough part for me. I remember our early years when we started this process, we'd go out and do market research, obviously, and we'd ask the people, why aren't you coming to Del Mar? And nobody could really come up with a reason, which is very frustrating. Well, if the parking too much, we'll fix that. Whatever it is, we'll give it to you. But they just didn't. It was this kind of apathy. Well, yeah, we hear it's really nice, but we just don't go there. So okay, well, you don't go there because you don't really give a rat's petunia about horses. Okay, so let's give you something else. Let's give you Ziggy Marley. Let's give you Ben Harper. Let's give you Crazy Hat Contest. Let's give you some
Cirque du Soleil.
And we did all that. So people say, "Oh, that's kind of a cool place to be," And it doesn't matter what you're doing. I mean, you look at a bar that sells the same booze that any other bar sells, but why are all the people there? Because the people want to be there. They feel comfortable there. They're part of a bigger thing, Well, at Del Mar, you're part of a bigger deal.
It's an event going there. I mean, I love going there. You get dressed up, and people go on the opening day of the races, and they're wearing the big hats, and it's
And where else can you see a Miss Cougar contest?
Oh my God.
I know. I'm sorry about that.
So, you've had some situations where you've had to kind of stand up to your ideals. I know in 2009 you put in the polytrack to help protect the horses.
That was actually,
And I remember that. You got a lot of flack. People wanted to pull their horses off because it wasn't fast enough. And you stood your ground. That must have been tough. How did you do that?
Well, again, you got to know what you want and stick with it. I think it was actually 2007, I think it was. And we had a rash of injuries in the preceding years. We really couldn't figure out why, and so in looking at it, we did a lot of studies of these horses. We did necropsies of them. We found out that there were some reasons. I mean, they were breeding more for speed, less for stamina. A lot of these horses were just tired. They were, they had some problems. They had different kinds of shoes on, and so we began seeing a pattern here of why these horses were being injured, and some injured enough to having to euthanize them. So I really wasn't in a position where we could do anything for the horse or to the horse, but I could make it a more safer track or a more forgiving racetrack. So we looked all over the world, and we found this synthetic track being used in the UK and places in Europe called Polytrack, and it was a mixture of sand and silicone and fiber and rubber and wax, and you mixed it together, and it was a very forgiving track. It was a slower track, and a lot of the people that had bred speed horses didn't like it, and we got into some interesting arguments, some of them in front of the press, unfortunately, but
you were tough. You stood your ground.
Yeah, you have to, sure, because it was for the horse. It was an easy position to win. I'm doing this for safety of the horse. You love horses, you like what I'm doing. And so you really had no argument on the other side of it,
But it was, people, we're talking about millions of dollars. People are talking about taking their horses away from the track.
And some did.
Yeah,
some did. And but
now the other tracks are following suit.
Well, a lot of them. In fact, it's interesting. The richest race in the world is in Dubai, and Sheikh Mohammed from Dubai loves racehorses, and he owns a lot of them. And now here's a man who has all the money in the world, but he also has all the sand in the world, which regular tracks are made out of.
Right.
So what does he put? He puts in a synthetic track.
Right.
He's got the entire Sahara Desert at his doorstep, but he went in and he put in a synthetic track because he knew how safe it was.
Right.
And so, you know, when you see those kind of guys making those decisions who could do anything in the world they want to do, and here he is, he went and put a similar type of track in. So
and saves horses' lives. So
yeah, and we've had, since we put it in 07, we've had a over 30% reduction in fatalities on the track. So which is good, because remember, you know, our 12,000 average daily people, and you look at the average hardcore racetracker is probably about 3,000.
Right.
So that difference doesn't ever want to see a horse get hurt, and they'll walk out, you know.
Yeah,
so,
no, we
you know,
love
the old hardcore,
them.
you know. But so we're in a little different position than a lot of the tracks, and even if
and tell us Zenyatta. Speaking
Zenyatta.
of horses, I became totally enamored with this horse, and I know that she just had a baby.
She did, yeah, just a couple days ago.
And what was it, do you
boy.
think, that people got so enamored with
Well,
this
I
horse?
think from one thing, of course, she just kept winning races.
Yes,
That'll get your
19 in a
attention.
row.
19 races in a row, and but she did it with such a fashion. I mean, she was a ham. She loved the cameras. You'd walk her around the paddock, if there were reporters around with the camera, she'd stop and look at them. She'd prick her ears up, like, okay, you know, she was a movie star, and she knew it. And she was owned by some really nice people, and you know, it was all there.
Yeah.
You know, and so
she
when
made
kept
Oprah's
winning,
top 10 list. You
she
know.
did. I know.
Yeah.
So she just did it with such style, and so I mean, when she would run, we were so lucky to have her for a number of years there. She'd come down. She won the same race at Del Mar year after year, and but she'd do it. She'd be in the back of the pack, and you'd think, oh no, she's gonna get big. And Mike Smith, who could ride her perfectly, he would wait till the last possible second to make his move.
Yeah, we were all like
right.
dying.
Oh, I know. I was. You know, well, I asked him. I said, "What are you doing, Mike? I mean, come on, stop this." And he'd say, "If I move her too soon and she gets to the lead, she thinks it's over and she'll quit running."
Yeah,
So,
because she's just thinking, I just need to get to the
all I need to do is
front.
beat that son of a gun out there, and once I do that, hey, I'm done. You know. So you better make sure that her nose is ahead, right, exactly at the wire, or else you're in trouble. And he, for 19 straight times, that's what she did. And unfortunately, the last race, she got beat just a zap. It was nobody's fault. It was a heck of a race, and
by a nose.
Yeah, by a nose.
Like if she would have been like this, she would have won.
She had just stuck her tongue out. You know?
Yeah. Now, I want to touch on this just briefly, that you have such a gift in, I mean, it's not just that you're making the right business decisions. You have a gift of empowering your team. People have come to work with you year after year after year. What is it that what is that special ingredient that you think you have?
I'm not sure. I'll tell you, I think, you know, you've got to set an example of what you want your people to be like. I mean, we're in the entertainment business, okay? I just tell her, look, we're going to have a party, okay? And it's just like you're home and you're inviting some friends over, okay? So you invite 40,000 friends over for opening day, or 45. You know, you treat them like your friend. You know, make them comfortable. Think about it. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? Are they going to have trouble parking? Or where's the problem spots? And I think, you know, when you work with your employees, they understand what you want.
Right.
And I think, you know, I mean, I love those guys. I mean, I'll tell you, our staff is the best staff in the world, and I tell them that all the time. You know, we have 1,500 employees, and I wouldn't trade any of them. Now, they're the same guys that might work Hollywood Park or Santa Anita, and they may not be quite as nice up there, you know.
Right.
But I think it's a combination of coming to Del Mar and your shoulders go down anyway, you're here. I know I worked the other tracks. When I'd come to Del Mar, I was a different person.
Well, they feel appreciated.
Well, you feel appreciated, and I really do appreciate them. I mean, I love those guys. I mean, I tell the new employees every year, I give them a little talk when they go through their training, and just say that, you know, look, you have our life in your hands. You know?
Yeah, no pressure.
Your customer service people, you can turn a guy around so quick, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's what it's about, really taking care of your clients. And I think in this economy, the businesses that remembered that and, you know, really embraced their clients and, you know, said, how can we make them feel at home. They're going to keep coming back. So you've built those amazing relationships.
Well, I think it is. Customer service is where, no matter what you do, if you have a customer, you got to take care of them, and you go the extra mile. I mean, look at Nordstrom's.
Right.
There's
Perfect
a
example.
perfect example. But I think these other companies are doing it too. I mean, I even forgot this company. I should, but I was buying something in some store, and when I got home, the phone rang. It was the guy just thanking me for being there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just little things. Okay, I'm going to go back there as soon as I can remember what the store was.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can do that. I mean, I'll go down, work the turf club, work the clubhouse, the grandstand. I'll go down and thank people for being there. Can I get you? Was your lunch okay?
Yeah.
If it wasn't, I'll make some jokes and so I'm going to go in and kill the chef and by the time they say, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, you have to have a personality. You have to be upbeat.
Right.
You can't be down. People with problems that come to you, you can't have a problem with them.
Right.
You got to solve it. You got to make them happy.
Yeah.
And you might not be able to solve the problem, but if they know you've tried and they feel good about the way you've handled it.
Even if you don't get the problem solved, but they see that you care and you're making an effort,
Sure.
it really does make a big impact. So tell me what's next for Joe Harper? What's next?
Well, I was thinking of retiring, but the fellow that I'd been kind of bringing along for 20 years took another job, so now I'm back.
Really? Uh-oh.
Yeah. So, well, he made a lot more money going.
Yeah, but nobody what's Del Mar going to be without you?
Well, it'll be fine. But I tell you, it's a love affair for me between Del Mar and myself, and just the whole area itself. I live in Del Mar. Our kids were brought up in Del Mar. Our grandkids are there. So it's a love affair, and I can't just walk away from it. I got a great crew, and I'm trying not to boss them around too much, and they're trying not to, cut my meat and tell me what to do, but they're close,
Right.
And I mean, I could walk away tomorrow and the place would run smoothly. They're just great guys, and they all do a super job, But it's fun just being kind of maybe the Don, or the old man, just walking around making jokes and being funny. And I guess I'll keep doing that until it's time to ease on down the road.
Well, when you say, oh man, let me just clarify this. I met Joe first because we work out with the same masochist fitness trainer, Marcus Heon, who's an ex-Marine, and we do these boot camps together. And one day, I had been working out with Joe for years. I mean, how many years have we been training together?
Yeah, probably close to 15 years.
And we've done mud runs together, totally crazy. But, you're so down to earth. I didn't know what you did. We're running in a boot camp once, and he said, Allison, would you like to have a couple tickets to the turf club? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. How'd you get your hands on those tickets? He's like, I run it.
I know people, yeah.
Yeah, you got some, you got a little pull. So, but anyway, you are in amazing shape. And I would say, I mean, I really believe this. I'd love to hear what your thought is, I do some intense fitness training, and it really keeps my mind clear. Like, I worked out this morning. I was a little nervous about this show today, I'll be honest. And it just, got the nerves out of me, and it keeps me strong. Mm-hmm. Would you say, staying in top shape and working out helps you in your business?
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's, for 7 weeks, it's 24/7. I mean, it is literally 24 hours a day.
Right.
There's some days there where I might catch a nap sometime. We open up the track at 4:30 in the morning. I'm there.
Wow.
I'm sometimes on a horse, riding around. It goes till late. There's always a party. There's always some social function you have to be at. So, you have to be really in good shape. Otherwise, it'll kill you.
Yeah.
And I think certainly Marcus has without killing me. But
he's
I always
come close.
Well, Allie and I are in this group, and there's all these young guys. You know what I mean? I mean they're like in their. And I say young. I'm going to be 69 here in about 5 days or so, and so I'm working out to live. They're working out to look good, So, and it's working obviously for Allie. I'm still
kidding?
alive. You still look good.
You look fantastic. Are you kidding me? They're all going 69. No way. Yeah. So, and you're a family man. You've got 9 grandkids.
I do, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. I've high school sweetheart, and almost 50 years marriage.
Yeah, you and Barbara. That's so beautiful.
It's been fun. I mean, that keeps you going too, and I mean, I really have to say that there's really almost no stress in my life because of my family and because of my friends. Because of the lifestyle that you've got going, and that's sort of everything. I mean, stress brings you down. It's just like putting rocks in your pocket, and
right.
If you can get rid of all those things, life is going to be a lot easier.
Yeah, it's your attitude. I mean, you're always in a good mood, and I think you just attract good things to you. When you have that kind of vibration, good karma too.
That's it. Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for coming here today, and I know I'm going to be seeing you back in the gym in a few days, and I know that all of you have learned a lot from hearing from Joe, and I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Allison. You're terrific. I'll tell you, this lady has done amazing things with her life, and you're an inspiration for a lot of folks, including me.
Thank you. Wow, you're so sweet. So we are going to be right back. Don't go away. We've still got more to share. I'm going to tell you how to get that mojo in your business. See you in just a few.